What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Awesemo Yahoo Thursday Night Live show. We are happy to be with you. Adam Kaufman, Greg Ehrenberg, and of course, look, Thursday night. I mean, what better way to start your football week than with the two of us? You've come to the right place. We're going to get into Carolina and Houston here coming up pretty soon. Greg, how are you?
Yeah, well, it's funny you reference, you go, what is the better way to start Thursday night? Well, I was talking about a better football game, not that it's at least the Thursday night games, as bad as they are, they could usually be watchable anyway, just for DFS purposes. So we have, players that we're rooting for. We've got bets that we've got going. But with that said, yeah, I wish we had a better game than Houston and Carolina. I do not expect this game to be overly competitive. Are you kind of on the same page as me there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially with Davis Mills starting at quarterback for Houston, I don't think this thing's going to be remotely competitive. I think it's, what a week to feel good about, having Christian McCaffrey in your season-long leagues. And, maybe that's the case for a couple of those wideouts for Carolina as well. But here's what I will say. So far, and again, we're just 2 in. This is number 3. Obviously, we all know, you alluded to it already, we all know the Thursday night football stigma that has existed for years. So far, so good on Thursday night football in 2021. We've had 2, at the very least, compelling games. Whether they've been entertaining all the way through or not, you can debate, but they've been close. They've come down to the wire. They've been interesting. It hasn't just been, well, what we expect tonight.
No, and really there's a couple of things here. I was going to say it's because Tyrod Taylor's out and Davis Mills is starting at quarterback, but it's not like this was an overly exciting Houston Texans team.
No,
even with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, even if he was playing, fairly well to start the year, they're 1-1. They beat the Jaguars. That's not saying much, but preseason win total for the Houston Texans was like 3.5, 4 wins, and so they started the year with 1 win, so that's already above expectations, but. Yeah, this game, Carolina's look good to start the year, 2-0. Davis Mills, I don't expect much at quarterback. And I think something that's going to be really important here then is trying to figure out what is this game script going to look like for a single game contest over on Yahoo, and how is that going to inform the lineups we build?
As you said, Carolina, good start, 2-0, one of only, I think it's 7 perfect clubs in the NFL at this point, only a couple weeks in. So that in and of itself, pretty impressive as usual, as we're used to. There's a lot of parity in this league. Carolina off to a solid start. It's got to hurt the Jets fans to see Sam Darnold successful, or maybe there are some Jets fans out there that are actually just happy for him and succeeding with a change of scenery. I'm not sure. No, not Mr. Ehrenberg. Either way, we'll get into our full breakdown. We only have you for a half hour, so we will bounce around, go position by position, look at the Yahoo projections, all of the guidance, obviously, from Fantasy Cruncher that you could receive in terms of lineup builds, all of that. First, want to tell you about our presenting sponsor, and of course, that is Yahoo, our good friends at Yahoo. You can start the NFL season off right with Yahoo Daily Fantasy. And to celebrate, we have a brand new exclusive deal thanks to our partnership with Yahoo, where you can get 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. You heard that right. It's 2 free months. And to qualify, you need to be new to Yahoo. That's very important to remember. You got to be new to Yahoo. Sign up for an account via the link in the description below. Deposit and play. That's it. Yahoo will send us your name after you play in your first paid contest. We will reach out via email with your coupon. If you need immediate access because you want to play today, email support@awesemo.com. We'll get you set up. Just to emphasize, this offer is new for new Yahoo users only. And if you're already a Yahoo user, you will not be eligible for this promo. But with your 2 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum, you will have access to our tools, our projections specifically designed for Yahoo DFS to help you take down those big Yahoo contests and other contests to win big with Yahoo DFS. So take advantage and join Yahoo today. I think that puts it all out there for the people, Greg.
Yeah, and I think that's also by the way, it's a great promo if you're new to Yahoo, because you're getting the 2 free months of the Awesemo Plus Platinum. The value of that is about $180. You can consider you can get that for just a $10 deposit over on Yahoo. So that's good value right there. And it has the tools to parlay that money and turn it into more money.
Even better. All right. So we'll get into our position by position look. Some things to remember, by the way, is, I was reading a little bit about these two teams and the matchup coming in. Of course, the Panthers are going against a rookie quarterback for the second time in just 3 weeks. We mentioned Davis Mills. It was Zach Wilson to begin the year. They beat the Jets. Of course, they've won both their games. We know that. For Wilson, and I don't know, because we saw what he did against New England last week as well. It's just been kind of a rocky start for the rookie second overall pick, in part because he's incredibly aggressive. Now, I don't know that Davis Mills is going to be nearly as aggressive. We have a very small sample size for him given that, he came in relief of Tyrod Taylor last week. The hamstring injury landed him on IR. So Mills is the starting QB for this team indefinitely. He wasn't great, and you wouldn't expect him to be great. The third rounder passed for north of 100 yards, a touchdown, an interception. Here in this contest, though, when you're looking at these two QBs, again, Darnold against Mills, Yahoo projections, at least, Alex Baker, the Awesemo projections, Darnold is at about 19 points, Mills tonight at 13 points. What are your expectations?
For Mills, fairly low, but I mean, he's also priced pretty low. He's inexpensive for a quarterback, only at $20, which makes him viable for this slate for sure. If you look at our points per dollar projections for this slate, 6.52 fantasy points per dollar project for 13.04. It would be different if he was priced more expensively, which, that's always going to be the case for anybody. I'd look at them differently if they're more expensive, but in particular for Davis Mills, only being $20 at the quarterback position, we have him project for 13.04 points. So you look at some of the people that are priced around him. I'd rather roster DJ Moore. I'd rather roster Sam Darnold, but we have Davis Mills projected for 13.04 fantasy points at $20. Then comparing him to, Brandon Cooks, who's projected for 11.43 fantasy points at $21. And I don't know that Brandon Cooks is going to have a good game unless Davis Mills proves himself capable of throwing the football and hitting him downfield. So, I mean, we still have him projected to be the fourth overall highest scorer in this game. If I look at my lineups right now, let's see. I'm not getting to a ton of Davis Mills, but relative to a single game slate at least. But I have him in the high 20% of my lineups right now. So I certainly think he's viable, but typically when we play these slates, I want to have the two quarterbacks in almost every single one of my lineups, and Davis Mills doesn't quite make the cut for that purpose.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we had the whole conversation last week talking about just, it's a showdown format. You got to have both QBs in there. It just makes sense. That's where most of your points are going to come from, yada, yada, yada. And we're so used to having that spiel. You look at this matchup, though, and it's not that setting. I ran sitting here on Fantasy Cruncher again with Alex's projections, putting those in just 100 lineups, and it's not 1,000, it's 100. It's still a decent sample size. And Sam Darnold is showing up in, let's see, with his superstar percentage, right around 50% of lineups. As far as Davis Mills, though, 31%, not in any superstar slots, again, in those 100 lineups. So about a third of lineups. This feels like one of those games where it probably shouldn't come as any surprise. And you acknowledge this already. Darnold's a guy you want in there. Obviously, McCaffrey's a guy you want in there. Brandon Cooks is a guy you want in there, getting the lion's share of the targets. And around that, you sort of mix and match a little bit, but I don't see a situation where you feel compelled to roster Davis Mills.
I mean, compelled probably isn't the correct word. We'll have to see ultimately, how popular is he going to be in terms of what percentage of lineups the field has him in. But I wouldn't say that he's somebody we have to stay away from. But more than likely, I think I'm probably going to be in lockstep with the field. Like I said, he's in somewhere around a third of my lineups right now, a little under 30%. And that's something I feel kind of comfortable with. It's still a quarterback. And here's something else to consider. You and I both agree this isn't going to be a competitive game in all likelihood. It's a game that there's a pretty good chance the Panthers end up winning by 10, 14 points or something like that. Here's where I think Davis Mills could have the most success in this game. Panthers get up to a 27-3 lead. They play prevent defense most of the second half, and Davis Mills just racks up a bunch of garbage time points. That is something that I think is on the table. If the game's competitive, I think he's going to struggle. But if we get to a point where it's really one side and he gets a very favorable game script, then I could see him putting up a lot of garbage time points in the second half.
Darnold's been pretty good through a couple of games under obviously a new regime. He's got some new teammates, although he still has that link with Robbie Anderson from their time in New York together. But with this change of scenery, he's completed about 70% of his passes through a couple of games. He's averaging almost 300 yards per contest. He's only been intercepted once. The line's generally protecting him. He's been sacked just a few times. He's passed for a few touchdowns. I don't think anyone would complain about what we've seen from Sam Darnold to this point. Is he the face of the team suddenly? Of course he's not. That being said, what are your expectations for him knowing that, he's got some good pass catchers around him?
Once again, it's relative to game script. It's a very easy matchup. The Houston Texans are widely considered to be Well, at least they were entering the season. They were widely considered to be the worst team in football. I think that narrative changed a little bit now that they've beaten the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they've gone from being considered the worst team in football to one of the worst teams in football. So that's a catch-22 for Sam Darnold. It's a very easy matchup for him. He's reasonably priced on Yahoo. I think he's a high priority relative to the other options. But once again, I worry what happens if the Panthers get out to a massive lead. What does it look like in the second half? Do they have to throw the ball much with Sam Darnold? I kind of doubt it. So I'm going to ask you that also. How concerned are you with the game script, and how big of a lead do you think we could potentially see the Panthers playing with it? They're favored by 8 points right now.
Yeah, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we see Carolina up 3 touchdowns at the half. It really wouldn't. You know, you look at what McCaffrey's done this year, how reliable he's been both on the ground as well as in the passing game. So another guy, obviously, that Darnold can rely on. We know what Anderson's been able to do and just how, you know, Darnold's been able to spread the ball around to some degree. I mean, it's mostly DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Christian McCaffrey in the passing game, but still he's sprinkling it around. I mean, Terrence Marshall could be a factor in this game. He's got 9 targets through 2 games. And, you know, as the game goes on, we'll get into the running back position a little bit, but as the game moves along, sure, you know, game script would maybe concern me as you're thinking about the passing game and how much are McCaffrey and you know, I don't know, does DJ Moore get a run? Is it, you know, Hubbard, is he going to have some opportunity there to just kind of kill clock as they go along a little bit deeper? But, you know, I guess it comes back in part, not to harp on Davis Mills and inexperience, but just giving the proper due to this Carolina defense as well. And part of it, I recognize as competition. It was Zach Wilson week 1. It was Jameis Winston, who was terrific in the season opener, but not good last week, as we know. But how much of that was Winston took a step back versus this Carolina defense is legit? You know, through 2 games, they've got, 3 interceptions. They've got 10 sacks, which are tops in the league. They've got the best defense on average when it comes to total yards passing, rushing yards, points on average. So like you said, the spread is 8 points. If this is a 20+ point game at the break, I won't be shocked.
Yeah, and I'm also going to bring up something that this is also something that plays both points. So Stephen Leibowitz in the YouTube chat said Mills has to be better than last week. He had a week to practice with the team. This goes both ways, though, because how many times have we seen quarterbacks that just enter a game unexpectedly as the backup and they find success because maybe they're not totally prepared for the game situation, or they weren't expecting to be in the game anyway, but the defense isn't expecting them either, and they've game planned an entire game for Tyrod Taylor. Think about the difference between the outlook of Davis Mills as a quarterback compared to Tyrod Taylor, who's, you know, primarily, I wouldn't say primarily a run-first quarterback, but a very mobile quarterback who's very focused on moving the ball with his legs, compared to Davis Mills entering the game last week. So the defense wasn't ready to see Davis Mills last week, just as this week we have a defense that's now able to prepare for Davis Mills. So it goes both ways to where, all right, Mills gets to prepare for this team, but the team gets to prepare for Mills, which wasn't on the table last week.
Let's go to running backs because we got a bunch of positions to get through, and we're already halfway through this show. We've got till 3:30 Eastern time. Christian McCaffrey should be considered the lock in this game. It's why, again, running 100 projections, he's in like 95% of lineups between the superstar, you know, spot and obviously being flexed. He's projected for about 23 points by Alex. And on the other side, just for the sake of comparing, it's Mark Ingram and it's David Johnson. These guys combined are projected for 12 points. What is your outlook with McCaffrey? And just to sort of foreshadow a later question, I guess, how much of a lock is he for you to not just roster, but put in the superstar spot?
Yeah, play him in all your lineups. Whether, you know, you could get contrarian by playing him not in the superstar spot, and you could take a chance with Sam Darnold there. Or you could throw in, you know, somebody else in terms of the superstar stock, because there's always chance that somebody ends up outscoring him. And the other thing also is, I think there's a pretty high likelihood that if you ultimately get Christian McCaffrey being the highest scorer in the game in the superstar spot, you're going to dupe with a lot of people. It's very, very difficult to have a unique lineup that has Christian McCaffrey in the superstar spot. For cash games, you're playing him in the 1.5x spot, no brainer. And overall lineups, I still want to get him into 100% of lineups. I just think his floor and ceiling is so much higher than everybody else. Consider how good of a fantasy producer he is, the consensus #1 pick in fantasy leagues this year. The game script is perfect for him. The matchup is really strong. It's hard to see him failing short of an injury. So maybe if you want to make the case for, hey, I'm not going to play Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to play one lineup that has Chuba Hubbard in the superstar spot, and then you're just banking on an early Christian McCaffrey injury. But other than that, it seems highly, highly likely to me that McCaffrey ends up in the optimal lineup. It's hard to envision a realistic scenario where he isn't in it.
So you look at it, you say $41. Who cares? You have to. I mean, this is just an eat the chalk game, and it's that simple.
Especially in this particular game, because who else is he competing with in terms of being the top scorer on average? Maybe Darnold has a big game, but once again, I think if Darnold plays pretty well, the Texans are going to struggle to score, and the Panthers are going to be running the ball out for a lot of the second half. So we've got Christian McCaffrey projected for 22.82 fantasy points over on Yahoo. We've got Sam Darnold for 19.1. The next highest is DJ Moore at 14.16. It's such a big gap in projections from player to player here that I just don't think there's that many players that could realistically outscore Christian McCaffrey. And then something else to consider, this is a game with so many weak fantasy producers overall. Salary cap is not really that restrictive. We've got $40 to $1 going to Christian McCaffrey. The next most expensive player, Sam Darnold, at $25. Then we're talking about DJ Moore and Davis Mills at $20, Brandon Cooks at $21. It's very, very easy to find value in this spot. So to me, Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be popular. You don't have to play him in every single lineup in the superstar spot, but I think he has to be in every lineup overall.
I have a multitude of questions for you pertaining to the wide receiver position. But before we get there, let's talk about the Houston backs, obviously. Mark Ingram he's the bell cow for this team. I mean, through 2 games, 40 carries already. Now he's not been great. He's only averaging 3 yards a carry, 126 yards. He's got the 1 touchdown behind him. Phillip Lindsay's getting an opportunity. David Johnson's getting an opportunity. I don't think you're going to see Davis Mills take off too often. He's not a super mobile QB. So Mark Ingram, just being that he's not projected for a lot of points. We talked about it. He's projected for 7 points. Looking at very quickly what the salary is for him at $12. Does he come in as potentially a sneaky value for you just because he's not incredibly expensive?
No, because I hate the game script. Mark Ingram is very, very reliant on running the football. He's not going to be catching passes. If the Texans are trailing in this game, I don't think he's really going to be on the field much in the second half. So I think that you could build lineups that are built with the idea of this being a game script where the game is competitive. And that's something where maybe you consider relying a little bit heavier on the Panthers passing game. But Mark Ingram, I think he's fairly likely to get scripted out of this game. And then the Texans are ultimately going to rely on Phillip Lindsay and David Johnson out of the backfield in the second half. Because Mark Ingram, I get that he's inexpensive. He's going to get the first crack at the running back snaps. But I don't like the game script for him whatsoever. And if you look at his start to the season, where he's had some success in terms of total numbers running the football, it's still we've seen more passing game action from David Johnson and Phillip Lindsay, which I think the game sets it better for those 2 guys than it does for Ingram.
Good. Steven, Anthony, Choker, so many others watching along with us in the chat and beyond. We appreciate you. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button here on the Awesemo YouTube page. You can be notified, of course, when our shows go live across our various YouTube channels, and so much great programming, including, of course, multiple shows getting you ready for Thursday Night Football. This one focused on Yahoo DFS. So we thank our presenting sponsor, Yahoo, and we invite you, obviously, to create lineups and use all this knowledge that Greg is putting forth for you to help help all of you build, expert lineups and maybe win a whole lot of cash out there as well. Let's go to the wide receivers with about 10 minutes to go here. We're still going to do wide receivers, defense, tight ends, obviously, superstar spots as well. The wide receivers. So DJ Moore, he is projected for 13 points. You got Robbie Anderson projected for just south of 11. On the other side, Brandon Cooks right around a dozen. Game script comes into it, obviously, but also just general approach, thinking about what we're going to see. Well, we were talking about Carolina, so let's start with Carolina. I think it's interesting, DJ Moore in particular. He's basically getting 10 targets a game. Yes, Christian McCaffrey's getting plenty of opportunities in the air, but in terms of the wide receivers, Sam Darnold so far has looked to DJ Moore first. And, I wouldn't be, when you talk about like projected leading scorers, high scorers, and we agree McCaffrey should be that guy. Would it shock you if Darnold's airing it out early, DJ Moore goes for a long touchdown or 2, scores a couple of touchdowns, hits for 100 yards, has 6, 7, 8 catches, and all of a sudden, Christian McCaffrey, even if he has a good game, he's kind of in the backseat a little bit. He's not necessarily the guy that has to be in that superstar spot because DJ Moore becomes, kind of a focal point as he has been all year.
So we have, short answer, no, it wouldn't surprise me. But I could also put a probability to it because based on the sims we have on the site, DJ Moore is the top overall scorer in this game 11.3% of the time. So what is it at? Like maybe 1 out of 10 times that, but it's not the most likely outcome. We have Christian McCaffrey doing it over 50% of the time. Sam Darnold doing it over 20% of the time. So we're talking about 75% of the time this game is played. Christian McCaffrey or Sam Darnold are the top overall scoring fantasy options. Then you've got a bunch of other guys, DJ Moore right around, like I said, the 11% number. And there's a bunch of other guys here like 3-4%. And that kind of rounds out the rest of the top of it. So DJ Moore, if I had to roster somebody who wasn't McCaffrey or Sam Darnold in the superstar spot, and you asked me who is the next most likely player to be the top scorer, it would be DJ Moore.
What about Robbie Anderson? What about McCaffrey? Again, just, how active do you think he's going to be in the air? How much is Darnold going to be throwing the ball in this game early, since we agree that in the second half, it's going to be more of a run offense?
It's hard. Like Robbie Anderson's still a big play receiver. He has, there's a lot of upside in Robbie Anderson, but he hasn't gotten targeted that much in the first couple of games of the season, which is certainly a little bit concerning. The big play upside, like I said, is always going to be there for him. But I mean, still, you're relying on him hitting for that big play, and it's only 2 weeks, so maybe the times could change. But week 1, he was targeted 3 times. 6 targets last week. That's a little more, but overall, we're looking at a guy who's caught 4 passes for 95 yards through 2 games this year. So he's, to me, definitely a step back from DJ Moore. DJ Moore is the higher priority. And I have a feeling Robbie Anderson is still going to be pretty popular here. I think of the guys in this price range, though, he's the least appealing to me. And I'd rather get to more receiver than Anderson.
All right, let's go to the other side then. Brandon Cooks. Talked about him. He's projected for about 12 points. He's expensive, as you would expect him to be. He's $21, so that's the 3rd most expensive guy, obviously behind McCaffrey and Darnold. So he is the most expensive receiver. I guess the only thing that I wonder when it comes to Brandon Cooks, so like we agree that, early on, especially if Davis Mills in Houston's playing from behind, he's going to have to pass the ball. It's just, you look at what they have around them there. You look at what Houston's offense looks like. I mean, through 2 games, he has 21 targets, 14 catches, 210 yards, a touchdown, but 21 targets. No one else on the team has more than 6. Carolina's defense being as good as it is, we were just talking about it, and they have depth in the secondary at the cornerback. They're getting healthier. Bouye coming off a suspension as well. Is there the possibility that Cooks gets removed from this game, that they're able to contain him, if not totally take him out entirely?
So for starters, incredible fantasy starts of the year for Brandon Cooks. Last week, 9 catches, 78 yards and a touchdown. That was on 14 targets. Week 1, 5 catches for 132 yards. That came on 7 targets. Now, here's my concern that I have here with Davis Mills at quarterback. How able is he going to be to get the ball downfield to Brandon Cooks? Because Brandon Cooks, at least in general, has not been a receiver who's, super steady. He's picking up a lot of, short 5-8 yard pass routes. He's generally relying other than the first couple of games this year, he's been relying on breaking big plays. He's been a really inconsistent wide receiver. And I just don't know that Davis Mills is going to be able to get the ball to him downfield with consistency. So I think that with the quarterback switch here, going from Tyrod Taylor to Davis Mills, my personal opinion is that Brandon Cooks takes the biggest hit of anybody in this game overall.
There's also no Danny Amendola. He's not playing in this game. He's 6 for 6 on a young year. So does that open up opportunity for, I don't know, a particular guy, specifically? It's probably not going to help Brandon Cooks, Eddie, just because it's one less guy the, offense is going to be able to hone in on, who's been reliable, albeit in a smaller sample size. So who benefits here?
I most likely nobody. If I had to pick out one guy, though, and this is actually somebody who got brought up in the YouTube chat as well, and I just did another short show for this game that I brought him up as well. And let's see, here was Anthony Arlowski said thoughts on Conley. So Mike Conley is somebody who I think is capable of picking up some of those shorter passing routes. And I think he could have. What did I say?
You get Mike on the brain, basketball.
Oh, my bad. So Chris Conley, who's min price only $10 over on Yahoo, and I think that he could be a guy who steps up for Houston, just catches a lot of short passes. I don't think he's going to be massively popular today. And as a punt, once again, not that I could be super confident in anybody who Davis Mills is going to be throwing the ball to, But Chris Conley, I could see potential for him really racking up garbage time receptions to maybe the game in the second half. We've got the Texans down by 14 or 17 points. There's just a lot of 5-10 yard passes going the way of Chris Conley. So I think it's within the realm of possibility that he has the type of game where it's like, hey, 6 catches for 70 yards or something in a lower scoring game that can be really valuable for this slate. So as far as a value play goes, I like Chris Conley quite a bit here.
So tight ends, it's, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you that they're both going to be bad. I can simply tell you that I'm not excited. That on paper, it's gross. You have Dan Arnold, you have Jordan Akins. They're both in that $10-11 range. Neither of them is projected for better than 5, 6, 7 points. Any belief that either of them will do anything in this matchup?
So here's the easy way to say this. I'd rather just roster the cheap receivers. Somebody brought up Anthony Miller in the chat. We just talked about Chris Conley. I'd rather roster those guys for $10 than I would roster Dan Arnold for $11, Farrell Brown for $11, Ian Thomas for $10, Jordan Akins for $10. I'd rather just go for the cheap receivers, especially considering the format of single game contests. We don't need to play somebody in each position. So to me, the tight ends just kind of get pinched here, because why would I play them for $10 or $11 when I could play wide receivers that I think have higher ceilings and floors for the same exact salary?
We've spent a lot of time, Greg, talking about the defense on the Carolina side, projected for 8.2 points in this one as compared to the Texans at 5.7. In terms of the salaries, you've got Carolina at $15, Texans at 16, which honestly is kind of surprising to me. It's a no-brainer to roster Carolina between those two options. How compelled are you to roster either defense in general?
So in general, I don't typically really like defenses for single games. However, I'm getting the Panthers in a little over 20% of my lineups in my builds for this particular contest. So I'm going to bring up a couple of things here. Number one, we all know we're getting out of Davis Mills, and being a young quarterback who's making his first start, there's fairly high probability he makes some mistakes, especially against the good defense in the Carolina Panthers. Something else I'm going to mention about lineup construction. If you're using Fantasy Cruncher to build your lineups today, you have to change the settings to be able to get to the defenses, because if you just have it set on the standard of 0 players versus defenses, you're going to get to 0 defenses in your build, because by default, you have 2 players on both teams. And if you have it set to 0, then there's no way the lineup builder will put defenses in. So for this game, I have it set for my Yahoo build to allow a max of 2 players versus defenses. So just as a way to approach your Yahoo builds, that's what I have my settings set on currently.
Thanks everyone being here with us. We got north of 100 people watching here just on YouTube. And of course, hit that like, hit the subscribe button. We want to thank you for hanging out here with us. Want to remind you that our Awesemo Plus NFL Express Weekly Pass, it's just $3.95. That's it. Best way to introduce yourself to Awesemo Plus NFL. And whether you're thinking about Yahoo or other options available to you, it's just a great place to look at all sorts of, you can go into the Fantasy Cruncher lineup builder. You could do obviously projections from Alex and others. You've got season long showdown, single game rankings, special tools, trade value tools, a fantasy streaming helper. So much is available to you. We encourage that obviously try it out for a week. $4. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I can't imagine you won't, because it's going to help you win money. I can borderline guarantee that. So make sure you check it out and start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Before we end this show, though, let's go back to the superstar spot. We've sort of danced around it at a few different points within this show because it seems like such a no-brainer. To me, it comes down to a few different guys. It's Mccaffery, who's going to be the chalk. And then if you want to get just a little different, you could look at Cooks, if you believe that he's matchup proof and defense proof, because he's going to get all those targets. You could look at DJ Moore. I guess it's also interesting. I don't know if you'd feel so inclined to roster Sam Darnold. I'm not there, but I could understand the reasoning behind it. Who stands out to you most beyond the obvious of Mccaffery?
I guess you take a shot here. DJ Moore would be the next most sensible option. We have him projected with 11.3% chance to be the top scorer on the slate. So I think that is something that we could take out as a stab. But and then you start to get to some of these other guys. It's like, hey, Brandon Cooks, 4%, Robbie Anderson, 4%, Davis Mills, 4%. And there's a pretty good chance the field is going to be above those numbers. If I'm going to go way off the board, I would say maybe Chuba Hubbard. If I'm going really crazy at the superstar spot, and there's
crazy.
a couple of
I
things.
like it though.
I mean, just from a standpoint of maybe you're just playing for, hey, how do you create the most upside possible on a single game slate? Maybe Christian McCaffrey gets hurt early, or maybe the game just gets so out of hand that they just say like, hey, we're going to play Chuba Hubbard more in the second half. But that's not really a realistic path to me. I'd say that the realistic one who's a little bit at least not projected to be super popular would be DJ Moore for me, who, right now we do have, like I said, 11.3% chance to be the top scorer in the game.
So again, Carolina, Houston tonight. We're expecting it to be lopsided, hopefully at least entertaining for the first half. And most importantly, you guys go out, build awesome lineups, win some money. That's the main objective. Some good news for you. Couple of things. One, Greg and I are going to get to do this every single Thursday. Catch us at 3:00 previewing what is to come Thursday night football. We've got some good matchups over the course of the year. And tomorrow, I'm going to be right back with you at the exact same time, again, talking Yahoo, but for twice the time, 3 to 4, hanging out with Eric. And we'll be diving into the Sunday main slate. And just, we won't be limited to one game. We're going to bounce all around. It's going to be great. Do you have any advice for me, Greg, or producer Jordan? I haven't worked with Eric yet.
Just let him know he's a piece of garbage, and then you just move on with your day. And
then just get out of the way, huh?
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. Nothing really too stressing. Just like don't challenge him with anything, because then he's trying to prove a point all the time. He's like eating chalk on streams and everything. He's like a toddler.
Don't put him on the defensive. All right, I got it. Thanks everyone for watching with us. Check it out on the replay because you got a few hours before game time. Greg, it goes by in a blink every single time.
Yeah, man. Everybody, good luck, and hopefully this game's close. That would be fun, but most importantly, good luck tonight.
Yeah, give us something interesting. Get healthy, Lamar Jackson. No more needless flips into the end zone. We don't need any of that. Jordan, thanks for sitting there. All right, we'll see you next week.